Now we're going to go to our exclusive with longtime Wheel of Fortune host Pat Sajak. He's sitting down for his first interview since he had that emergency surgery that temporarily forced him off the show.
He left after more than 40 years of smiling contestants, spinning wheels, and easy charm. Some people thought he was pushed out. Others thought there was drama going on behind the scenes, a disagreement over a contract, or tensions that had been building for years. But when Pat finally handled it himself, his explanation wasn't what most people expected, and in some ways, it was even stranger than the rumors. It wasn't about fame, money, or tiredness. It had to do with someone much closer. No matter how you look at it, his choice could be seen as either brave or surprisingly controversial. Pat Sajak says what made him lose it. Most people know Pat Sajak from his polite smiles and well-timed jokes over the years, as the cool-headed host who made Wheel of Fortune feel like it had been around for a long time. But his journey didn't start out on TV, long before he became known for spinning letters and easy banner. And it didn't always go according to plan. Born Patrick Leonard Sajak on October 26, 1946 in Chicago, Illinois. He grew up in a working-class setting that offered more grit than glitz. Chicago, shaped by industry and resilience, became the background for a boy who would later master the art of composure under pressure. Pat's road to fame would take some unexpected turns, unlike many TV stars who carefully plan their rise to fame. Beginning with a passion for radio and TV, his work took him to war zones and back into people's living rooms across the country. In the 1960s, Pat went to Columbia College, Chicago, to study communications and became very comfortable speaking in front of a crowd. He didn't wait for permission to pursue radio. He jumped in early working as a DJ while still in school, but the same way that he called dreams began to take shape. Life threw him into a completely different setting. During the Vietnam War, Pat was in the U.S. Army from 1968 to 1970. A lot of people were sent into battle, but Pat's tool wasn't a rifle, it was a microphone. He got a job as a disc jockey for Armed Forces Radio and would meet other soldiers with the famous line, "Good morning, Vietnam." Robin Williams later made this style popular in movies. Even when things were bad, his voice brought humor, comfort, and a sense of home. Being able to connect through sound alone showed that he was one of a kind. When Pat got back to normal life after Vietnam, he didn't waste any time trying to start over in radio. He moved into television in the 1970s and got a job as a weatherman for KNBC in Los Angeles. People saw something different about him. He wasn't just reading the weather report, he was fun to watch, not even trying. In a city full of people trying to get attention, his quiet voice and gentle sense of humor made him stand out. And a very important person was looking. MV Griffin made Wheel of Fortune. Griffin made a choice in 1981 that would change both of their lives. He chose Pat Sajak to take over as host of Wheel of Fortune from Chuck Woolery. Some network leaders didn't want the change at first. It seemed like Pat wasn't interesting enough to them. Griffin, however, claimed that he saw something that no one else did. A host who wouldn't take over the show, but would let other people shine. By 1983, Wheel of Fortune was shown all over the country, and Pat Sajak was all over the place. It was easy to read. Get the prize by spinning the wheel and figuring out the puzzle. It wasn't just the game that made it work, though. The way Pat could make contestants feel comfortable and keep people interested was amazing. He tried not to fail. He didn't take the show away. The way he ran the show was like having an old friend sit across the room. His charm wasn't loud. It was steady, and people in America loved it. He wasn't just a host for a few years. He was a normal part of life. Many people watched not only for the prizes, but also just to hear his words at the end of the day. Pat chose to test how versatile he was when he was at the top of his game. He was the host of the CBS late-night talk show, The Pat Sajak Show, from 1989 to 1990. It was meant to compete with Johnny Carson's Tonight Show. It was a brave and dangerous thing to do. It was almost impossible to beat Carson. Even though Pat was charming, the show had trouble getting viewers. It was ended after a year. For some, that could have been a terrible loss. But Pat took it with the same dry humor that made him a great show. He went back to Wheel of Fortune without being angry or embarrassed. His reputation wasn't hurt by failure. It just served as a reminder that even the calmest people take chances. From the 1990s on, Pat's appearances on Wheel of Fortune only got better. In 1997, he started co-hosting full-time with Vanna White, making their relationship one of the longest running on TV. Their chemistry is now so famous that it's considered television history. A lot of hosting pairs talk in a planned way, but theirs seemed natural. He led her, she told him, he joked, and she smiled knowingly. Their beat never needed to be changed because it felt real. They worked together to make the show not only fun, but like family. It feels like home. Pat Sajak's attitude became clearer as the 2000s and 2010s went by. He wasn't afraid to be sarcastic, making dry comments that sometimes caught people off guard, but he always did it with a smile on his face. Besides performing on stage, he sometimes wrote articles and shared political opinions on social media. Some hosts were very careful not to say what they thought, but Pat didn't try to hide his. Still, most people respected that he didn't let their views get in the way of how professional he was on screen, even when they didn't agree with him. Pat had to have emergency surgery on his intestines in 2019, which was one of the hardest times of his life. He had to leave the show for the first time in decades, and Vanna White took over as host for a short time. It was clear how much people liked him at that time. People in the audience were worried, and when he came back, it wasn't taken for granted. It had become so used to having his calm presence that even a short absence felt important. It was a warning that there was a person behind the smooth delivery. Real person, not just someone who appears on TV. In just 2 years, in 2021, his legacy was finally written down. After beating out the famous Bob Barker, Pat Sajak became the longest-running game show host in US TV history. The accomplishment was recognized by Guinness World Records, which shows not only how long it took, but also how consistent it was. In current entertainment, it's almost impossible to host a show for decades without it becoming outdated. Still, Pat did it without changing who he was or following the latest trends. He stayed calm, funny, and unfazed, which was his way. Problems and disputes with Pat Sajak. People have praised Pat Sajak's work for how long it has lasted and how consistent it has been, but there have also been many arguments about how he acts and what he says. His legacy is unique because most of the problems he caused were not big scandals or legal battles. Instead, they were small things like tone, phrasing, body language, or jokes that were said at times when they weren't meant to be understood that way by some viewers. Every moment of a show can be cut, shared, and criticized in a matter of seconds, so even the smallest going against what people think is polite can become a hot topic quickly. Because Pat Sajak was at the forefront of daily syndicated TV for decades, he was often the target of such criticism, especially in the digital age. As he hosted Wheel of Fortune, people started to criticize the way he behaved on TV. Someone watched and started to wonder if the contestants always liked his dry wit. His trademark humor was often praised for keeping the show interesting, but some people on social media shared clips saying that he seemed rushed or rude. As an example, Sajak would make sarcastic comments about competitors mispronouncing words or giving strange answers. Fans who liked his style said that the snark made the show more real and showed that even a well-rehearsed show could have reactions that weren't planned ahead of time. Some critics, though, thought that some of the host's comments were rude or insulting, and they said that the host shouldn't make the contestants feel bad on national TV. There was a lot of talk about these debates online, but it never got so bad that competitors complained or the network took action, which shows that the problem was more with how the audience saw it than with the debates themselves. Conflict behind the scenes. There was more of this stress during the lift and spin scandal in 2021. In the video that got a lot of attention, Sajak joked that one of the contestants should clear out his throat because he was stumbling while speaking. Even though the comment was made quickly and in jest, some people found it hurtful. People who care about issues of speech differences thought the comment might have been meant to make fun of or put down people with speech problems. Others said it was just a joke that SJ made on the spot, which fits with his attitude. The split showed that people were having more and more talks about what kind of humor is appropriate in public. The network did not make an official comment, and SJAC did not talk more about the event in public, but the conversation surrounding it showed how much audience expectations had changed. In the past few decades, what might have been seen as harmless small talk has become something that needs to be looked at ethically in today's media culture. A similar argument came up again in 2023 when a video of Shock putting a contestant in a fun headlock went viral. It was clear that the act was meant as a joke, and the candidates seemed to see it as friendly. But people online had different reactions to the video. Some viewers laughed at the sudden stunts because they thought they were funny and broke up the show's usual flow. Others wondered if those kinds of physical moves were appropriate in a work setting, especially now that people are more worried than ever about personal limits and consent. Some people said that touching someone should always be done carefully, even if it's just for fun. This is especially true when millions of people are watching and responding in real time. Again, neither the participants nor the producers made a formal complaint. This suggests that the moment was seen as funny within the production itself. Because he was so vocal about his conservative views, Sajak was known in public for more than just hosting game shows. In contrast to many TV stars who choose to stay neutral in public, Shock didn't try to hide his political views. Through the years, he became known for backing Republican candidates and talking about politics in interviews and in writing. Adding your ideas. His longtime work with Hillsdale College, a conservative school where he was on the board of directors, showed that he was even more on the right side. People who supported him liked how he was ready to stand up for what he believed in no matter what the public thought. They said that entertainers should be able to speak out about politics like everyone else. But people who didn't like it thought that publicly supporting one political side could turn off fans who liked Wheel of Fortune because it wasn't about politics. Some people said that a person who was linked to good, balanced entertainment should not use divisive language, no matter what their personal beliefs were. This disagreement reached a peak in 2014, when there was an event known as the climate change tweet incident. In a sarcastic post on social media, Sajak said that people who were worried about climate change were haters who didn't care about their country. The wording was meant to be funny, but many people who read it online thought it was too rude. Some people said he made a big world problem seem silly and used strong language. As the negative reactions grew, SJAC finally took down the tweet and said it was just a joke. Still, the response showed how quickly one line could change how people thought about something. Even longtime fans who loved his work on TV stopped to think about whether such comments made him look less friendly than usual. Wheel of Fortune's history in the area of scandals. The legacy of Wheel of Fortune, on the other hand, is a very different story. Critics and personal views have sometimes changed how people see the show's stars. Instead of strife, it was built on strength, new ideas, and cultural continuity. Before it became controversial and made headlines, the show started out as a simple idea, a spinning wheel, a word game, and the thrill of trying to guess a phrase before time ran out. It debuted in 1975 on NBC's afternoon lineup, which was created by Media Mogul M.V. Griffin. Chuck Woolery hosted it, and Susan Stafford was the first letter-turning hostess. At the time, it was seen as just another daytime game show in a TV market already full of quiz shows and other entertainment shows. However, something about the show's framework, visual suspense, familiar rhythm, and ability to be related to everyday life quickly drew people in. People watched more than just the contestants. As they watched from their living rooms, they yelled out answers before the wheel stopped moving. That collaborative feel, which wasn't common at the time, made Wheel of Fortune a hit right away. Early success didn't keep things from getting tense, though. In 1981, Chuck Woolery quit the show because of a pay disagreement with NBC. This was a major turning point in the show's history. Sajak, a former radio host and weatherman, was chosen by M.V. Griffin to take Woolery's place. Reports say that executives at first didn't think Sajak had the charisma to host a national game show, but Griffin pushed, and the choice would determine the franchise's future. Sajak was a natural fit for the show because of his calm delivery, dry humor, and steady presence. He helped the show make its first big change without throwing off its flow. In 1982, Susan Stafford stepped down to make room for Vanna White, which was another change that made the show even more different. What not many people could have seen what happened next coming. Vanna did more than just become a co-host. She became famous all over the world because of her beauty, charm, and ability to turn letters into signatures. She quickly became a symbol of the show. She got national attention in a way that isn't often seen for a game show assistant. She just walked across the puzzle board and smiled through every round. It was because Sajak and White worked well together that their relationship became known as the longest running in the history of TV hosts. The style of the show got a big boost in 1983, when it became syndicated evening programming. That move turned Wheel of Fortune from a popular show during the day into a huge hit during prime time. Wheel grew with its audience without changing its recipe, which is different from many shows that lose their appeal over time. It beat out all other game shows on TV to become the most watched broadcast show in the U.S. by 1988. The Wheel was only a prop at first, but it became a sign of American TV. Once dinner was over, families crowded around it. The contestants trained like athletes did for an event. It was talked about by local news hosts. It wasn't just a show. The act was a rite. Not how complicated it was, but how familiar it was, made it work so well. It was clear to everyone how it worked. There were no hard-to-understand rules or quick turns. Just luck, letters, and the thrill of being the first person to solve a puzzle. Then technology started to change. In 1997, the show's visuals got a big makeover when the puzzle board was automated. Instead of having people spin the tiles by hand, touch-sensitive computers did the work. Some longtime fans were worried that the change would take away from the magic of Vanna physically flipping letters, but her smooth shifts and signature hand movements kept the magic alive. The change brought the show up to date without changing how simple it was. More improvements came next. In 2008, the show marked 25 years in syndication, which is an important milestone that not many TV shows ever reach. It stayed at the top of its field even though a lot of other game shows came and went. Others tried to copy its style by using bigger prizes, brighter lights, or famous themes, but none of them were able to copy its rhythm. It did something very rare. It was relevant without being new. By 2011, Wheel of Fortune had fully moved into the modern age of broadcasting when it switched to high-definition TV. The puzzle board's LED lights were brighter than ever. The set got a sleek new look, and the wheel itself sparkled with new digital screens and color gradients. But even with all the improvements, longtime watchers could tell right away that not much had really changed. It was the same game, but it looked better on new flat-screen TVs because it was sharper, clearer, and more finished. Even people who had not watched in decades could do so and feel like no time had passed. That's what made it last so long. Even though it changed, it grew. Then, in 2021, Pat Sajak and Vanna White were officially recognized by Guinness World Records as the longest-running game show hosts in U.S. television history. This was one of the show's most important honors. At that point, they had been together for almost 40 years. Through network changes, criticism on social media, personal health scares, and changes in the business as a whole in the shows they watched, Wheel of Fortune stayed on the air because it never tried to be anything other than a comfort show. Many shows come and go based on trends or spectacles. People went back to it when they wanted to feel at ease. They watched on vacations, during national emergencies, and on calm weeknights. There was no chance to win a car or a trip. It had to do with habits, repeat, and dependability. When you look back at its history, Wheel of Fortune didn't just last. It summed up a time. Born in 1975, It started over with new leadership in 1981, became stronger with a famous partnership in 1982, and reached a higher level through syndication in 1983. By 1988, it had become the most important thing in the country and never looked back. It got new.